My mom chose my toxic stepsister over me and kicked me out. Now, I got engaged, and my fiancé's company dropped her husband. She blames me. It all started with a feeling, or rather, the distinct lack of one from the person who was supposed to give me the most, my own mother. Growing up, emotional abandonment wasn't a term I knew, but it was a reality I lived. While other kids had mothers who were present, mine was a ghost in her own home, more interested in her social calendar than her daughter. The divorce didn't make things better, it just gave her a wider stage for her self-absorption. Then came the new leading man in her life, my stepfather, and with him, the understudy who would become the villain of my early years, my stepsister, Sarah. The ink was barely dry on their marriage certificate when my room, my sanctuary, was declared a shared space. I wasn't consulted, I was informed. Sharing a room with a stranger was one thing, but sharing it with Sarah was a masterclass in misery. I tried to hold my ground, to carve out a little corner of peace in what was supposed to be my home, but Sarah wasn't interested in peace. She was interested in power, and she found it in making my life unbearable. The bullying wasn't confined to the four walls of our shared room, it spilled into the hallways of our school, a relentless tide of taunts and torment. I tried to be strong, to endure, believing that eventually, someone would see, someone would step in. But the only one who stepped in was my mother, and she stepped in to show me the door. Just shy of my 18th birthday, with A-levels looming and the world feeling like it was collapsing, I was kicked out. The accusation? That I was the troublemaker, the one who couldn't get along. The irony was a bitter pill I was forced to swallow. Luckily, a lifeline appeared in the form of my friend, Chloe. Her family, a stark contrast to my own, welcomed me with open arms. Suddenly, I was living in a home filled with warmth and genuine care, a world away from the cold indifference I'd grown accustomed to. They weren't just wealthy in material possessions, they were rich in kindness and support. They saw something in me, something worth investing in. With their encouragement, I navigated community college, juggling studies and part-time jobs, slowly, painstakingly, building a life from the rubble of my past. The years that followed were a blur of hard work and quiet healing. I focused on myself, on becoming the person I wanted to be, not the person my mother and stepsister had tried to make me. And then, just when I thought my life had settled into a comfortable rhythm, Jeff walked in. He was kind, funny, and saw me for who I was, not where I came from. His family owned a successful chain of restaurants, a testament to their hard work and business acumen. When he proposed, it felt like the final piece of my carefully reconstructed life clicking into place. A beautiful ring, a loving partner, a future that shimmered with promise, it was everything I had dared to dream of. But the universe, it seems, has a twisted sense of humor. Just as I was basking in the glow of my engagement, a ghost from my past decided to resurrect herself. Sarah. Nearly a decade had passed since I'd last seen her, a decade I'd spent erasing her from my narrative. She reached out, her message dripping with an apology so saccharine it made my teeth ache. She spoke of regret, of sleepless nights spent lamenting her past behavior. And then came the bombshell, dropped with a casualness that was utterly chilling. She admitted to planting drugs in my room all those years ago. That was her grand plan to get rid of me, the final act in her campaign of cruelty. My mind reeled. For years, I had carried the shame, the injustice of being branded a troublemaker. To hear the truth, after all this time, was a shock, but suspicion quickly followed. Why now? Why, after all these years of silence, did she choose this moment, right after I announced my engagement to a man from a prominent family? My gut screamed that there was more to this than a sudden pang of conscience. A little digging, a few discreet inquiries, and the missing piece of the puzzle slammed into place. Sarah's husband, a man I'd never met, was a supplier for Jeff's family's restaurant chain. And, as fate would have it, Jeff's company had recently been reviewing its suppliers, looking to streamline operations and cut ties with underperforming vendors. Her husband's business, it turned out, was on the chopping block. Suddenly, her apology didn't seem so genuine, it felt like a desperate, manipulative ploy. The axe fell, as I suspected it might. Jeff's company, after careful consideration and a review of several suppliers, decided to terminate the contract with Sarah's husband. The decision, Jeff assured me, was purely business. His company had found a new supplier offering better quality and more competitive pricing. It was a standard business move, something that happens every day. But Sarah didn't see it that way. In her eyes, I was the puppet master, pulling the strings, orchestrating her husband's downfall out of some long-held grudge. The news of the terminated contract sent her into a tailspin. The saccharine apologies vanished, replaced by a torrent of vitriol. She took to social media, crafting a narrative that painted me as a vindictive homewrecker, a malicious schemer who had used her newfound connection to Jeff's family to destroy her life. She accused me of sabotaging her husband's business, of being the architect of their financial ruin. It was a public character assassination, designed to inflict maximum damage. My phone buzzed incessantly with notifications, messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, all wanting to know my side of the story, all secretly relishing the drama. Jeff was furious, not just for the attack on me, but for the blatant lies being spread about his family's business practices. The decision to drop Sarah's husband had been a collective one, made by the board, based on sound business principles, not personal vendettas. He wouldn't stand for it. His family, known for their integrity, decided they couldn't let these defamatory statements slide. They consulted their lawyers, and soon, a defamation lawsuit was filed against Sarah and her husband. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction, a sense that finally, her actions would have real consequences. Another part of me, the part that still remembered the vulnerable girl who just wanted her mother's love, felt a twinge of sadness for the mess she had created for herself. But that sadness was fleeting, quickly overshadowed by a steely resolve. I had spent too many years allowing her to dictate my emotional landscape. The lawsuit dragged on, a stressful backdrop to what should have been a joyous time, our wedding preparations. My mother, predictably, rushed to Sarah's defense. In her eyes, her precious stepdaughter could do no wrong. I was, once again, cast as the villain, the ungrateful child who had forgotten where she came from. But her words, which once would have cut me to the core, now felt like distant echoes. I had built a new family, a new life, a fortress of love and support that her negativity couldn't penetrate. Jeff and I focused on our future, on the vows we would soon exchange, on the life we were building together. The wedding was everything I had ever dreamed of, a beautiful celebration of love and new beginnings, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for us. In the end, the court ruled in our favor. The evidence was irrefutable, Sarah's accusations were baseless, her online campaign a clear act of defamation. They were ordered to pay damages and issue a public retraction. It wasn't about the money, it was about the truth. It was about clearing our names and drawing a definitive line in the sand. My mother continued to champion Sarah, their toxic bond apparently unbreakable. But it no longer mattered. Their drama, their negativity, their endless cycle of blame and victimhood, it was their story, not mine. My story was about resilience, about finding love in unexpected places, about building a future on a foundation of strength and self-worth. As Jeff and I toasted to our new life, with the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a profound sense of peace. The ghosts of my past had finally been laid to rest, not by forgiveness necessarily, but by the simple act of walking away and choosing happiness. I had found my happily ever after, not in a fairy tale castle, but in the quiet strength of a love that was real and a life I had built, brick by painstaking brick.